Somewhere in the middle of the ocean, a giant tanker is moving through the night. On a tracking map, it's just one dot among thousands. And then it vanishes. Its signal goes dark. No more position updates. No one watching from shore can say exactly where it is or what it's doing. Hours later, the ship reappears, a little lighter, riding a bit higher in the water. Officially, nothing happened. This is not a glitch. This is how a secret world works. Far beyond the coastline, in places where laws are thin, surveillance is weak, and money flows in the shadows. Welcome to the ocean's dark zones, hidden highways of trade, crime, and power. Today, most of the world's trade moves by sea. Grain, oil, gas, cars, phones, clothes. Almost everything around you has probably spent time inside a ship. Ports are the visible part. Cranes, containers, bright lights, busy docks. But most of maritime life happens far beyond the horizon, in open waters where there are no fences, almost no cameras, and very little direct control. These spaces are supposed to belong to everyone, the high seas, beyond any single country's territory. But in practice, control belongs to whoever has the ships, the fuel, the surveillance systems, and the willingness to bend the rules. The ocean is not just empty blue on the map. It's a dense, invisible highway, and in some stretches, parts of that highway go dark. Modern ships are not supposed to be invisible. They use a system called AIS, the Automatic Identification System, which regularly broadcasts their identity, position, speed, and course. Satellites and coastal antennas pick up these signals, turning the ocean into a map of moving dots. But there are two ways a ship can disappear from that map. The first is innocent, weak signals, technical problems, gaps in satellite coverage. These are normal. The second is intentional. A ship's crew or owner can switch off the AIS transmitter, spoof its location, or manipulate the data it sends. In satellite records, it simply goes dark. When many vessels regularly go dark in the same areas, analysts talk about dark zones, regions of the ocean where surveillance breaks down and where the line between legal and illegal activity becomes very thin. These dark zones often cluster around remote high seas, busy choke points, and offshore meeting points where ships quietly exchange cargo far from any port. One of the clearest uses of dark zones is sanctions evasion. When a country faces restrictions on selling its oil or gas, it still needs buyers, and buyers still need energy. What changes is the route and the level of secrecy. In recent years, analysts have tracked shadow fleets, hundreds of older tankers with unclear ownership and insurance, moving oil for sanctioned states. These ships often turn off their AIS near sensitive areas, spoof their positions to appear in safe waters, and meet other ships offshore to transfer cargo from one tanker to another, a ship-to-ship transfer, far from any port. From space, it can look like this. A tanker approaches a dark zone and disappears from the map. Hours later, two ships reappear, one riding higher in the water, one lower. On paper, the cargo may look legal. In reality, the oil may have changed hands multiple times, washing its origin clean through a series of untraceable transfers. For traders and states trying to bypass sanctions, dark zones are not empty ocean. They are useful blind spots. Dark zones don't just hide oil. They also hide what lives below the surface. Fish. Illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, often called IUU fishing, is a global problem. It depletes fish stocks, damages fragile ecosystems, and robs coastal communities of billions of dollars in income. Some fleets involved in IUU fishing regularly switch off their AIS when they enter marine protected areas, foreign waters, or zones where they are not allowed to operate. They fish in the dark, then sail back into the light with full holds and no official record of where the catch came from. At sea, Smaller fishing vessels often transfer their catch to large refrigerated carrier ships called reefers. This transshipment is efficient, but it also makes it easier to hide illegal catch and abuse. Far from port, some crews endure forced labor, violence, and months or years without setting foot on land. In those conditions, the dark zone is not just a technical concept, it's daily life. By the time the fish reaches a supermarket thousands of kilometers away, the chain of custody may be so muddled that no one can say where it was really caught or what happened to the people who caught it. In some parts of the world, dark zones are not just about hidden cargo, they're about physical danger. In the Gulf of Guinea, off West and Central Africa, busy shipping lanes pass close to countries facing poverty, weak governance, and armed groups. In the 2010s, this region became a global hotspot for piracy and armed robbery at sea. Crew kidnappings and hijackings spiked, forcing shipping companies to reroute or hire private security. Regional navies and partners have since reduced the number of successful attacks, but the risk hasn't vanished. For ships transiting these waters, going dark can sometimes be a defensive tactic to make routes less predictable, identities less visible. But the same lack of visibility also helps attackers. Pirate skiffs can approach from the shadows, choose isolated targets, and disappear into rivers, mangroves, or neighboring jurisdictions. The Gulf of Guinea is just one example. From the Strait of Malacca in Southeast Asia, two parts of the Caribbean, maritime crime thrives where states are fragile. Coast guards are underfunded, and the ocean offers a quick escape. In these places, dark zones are the gaps between states, spaces where no one truly has the capacity to fully enforce the rules. Part of the reason dark zones exist is simple. There is no single ocean police. International law divides the sea into zones, territorial waters, up to 12 nautical miles from the coast, where states have strong control. Exclusive economic zones, or EEZs, up to 200 nautical miles, where states control resources like fish and oil, but don't fully control navigation. Beyond that lie the high seas, areas that belong to no single country. On the high seas, ships mostly fall under the authority of the flag state, the country whose flag they fly. In theory, this provides order. In practice, it creates gaps. Some states sell so-called flags of convenience, easy registration with low taxes and light regulation. A tanker might be owned by a shell company in one country, managed from another, insured in a third, crewed by people from several more, and flying the flag of a state with very limited capacity to monitor what it does. When something goes wrong, an oil spill, illegal fishing, or a violent incident, responsibility can be spread so thin that accountability almost disappears. Dark zones live in these legal gray spaces where geography, paperwork, and economic incentives all pull in different directions. For a long time, what happened in dark zones stayed there. That is starting to change. Researchers, NGOs, and companies now combine AIS signals, satellite imagery, radar, and machine learning to spot suspicious patterns at sea. They look for ships that go dark near sanctioned ports, vessels that meet again and again in the same remote locations, fishing fleets operating inside protected areas, or impossible routes that suggest spoofed locations. Platforms like Global Fishing Watch use this approach to reveal hotspots of likely illegal fishing and risky transshipment around the world. Insurers and regulators are building tools to flag shadow fleet tankers and complex ownership structures. Governments are negotiating new agreements to protect high seas biodiversity and crack down on IUU fishing and unsafe shipping practices. Technology won't erase dark zones completely, but it can make them smaller and make it harder to pretend that the ocean is simply too big to watch. On most maps, the ocean is just blue space between continents, a background. Look closer, and another picture appears. Arteries of global trade, routes of smuggling and exploitation, corridors of strategic power. Dark zones are not empty. They are full of ships, money, and people, moving through spaces where laws are weakest and where the consequences of failure can wash up thousands of kilometers away. The fuel in a car, the fish on a plate, the price of goods in a store, all can be shaped by decisions made in places most people will never see, on waters that exist in the gaps between jurisdictions. As technology reveals more of this hidden world, we face a choice: treat the ocean as a limitless frontier to exploit in the shadows, or as a shared system that needs rules, transparency, and protection. Because the map of power on our planet is not only drawn on land, it is also written in the shipping lanes and dark zones that circle the globe, far beyond the horizon and right under our noses.